Considering what we know about what's next for Marvel Rivals and the next two characters getting added, and the fact that it seems like one of them is going to be Daredevil, very likely in Season 4.5. I'm kinda hoping for a little later. I'm hoping for Season 5, because I do think we need to focus a bit more on other characters. Not other characters specifically, but just, you know, tanks and supports. But I love Daredevil, and I'm very excited for him. So I want to give my pitch for Daredevil's kit. Alright, first, let's get something straight. I love him, and I think because of that, I'm going to be loading this character up. So first things first, his primary fire to me should be him swinging his billy clubs in a pattern of 4. First hit would be a left-handed swing to the right, then a second right-handed swing continuing from that last swing. The third hit would be a single-handed slam with the bottom of one of the clubs, and finally ending it with a flipping axe kick. Just landing straight on someone's head. Be awesome. I love the idea of it. I think making sure that Daredevil shows off how fluid he is with his martial arts is very important to the visual identity of the character. And I think specifically that ender is a big factor in that. Secondly, his secondary fire, Ricochet Toss. A throw of one of his batons that bounces off an enemy and tracks to the closest enemy of who was hit. But that's not all. If the Ricochet Toss doesn't hit anybody, but instead hits the environment, it has the chance to bounce to a single enemy based off of a cone depending on how the baton was thrown and how it gets angled off of that. Now before we move on to the other abilities, I want to talk about his melee button. And you might be asking yourself, well, why we're going back to his primary fire, but I want to make it clear. I want him to have 2 separate melee types. Because to further showcase just how experienced he is in hand-to-hand combat, I want him to start boxing. A jab, a cross, another jab, a hook, and 2 uppercuts. And I know that's a lot to ask for, and we aren't even halfway done, but let me cook. And just one last thing before we start moving on to his abilities. I would like to give him a horizontal double jump that grants And one last thing before we start moving on to his abilities. I would like to give him a horizontal double jump that grants invincibility similar to Star-Lord on a 10-second cooldown, but it's not exactly just a pure, spinning flip away. I would showcase it primarily as kind of a handspring, like a single-handed handspring that he could still realistically, seemingly toss his billy clubs while doing the flip. And now for his first ability. A simple forward lunging drop kick that slows enemies that it connects with, forcing enemies into a more close range fight, which will allow Daredevil to actually make his enemies fight on his terms. Drop kick would be on like an 8-second cooldown or something. His second ability would be Daredevil using his billy clubs in a nunchuck style, swinging the clubs around in a spherical radius that does damage over time. Attacking from angles only someone like Daredevil could use. Nunchucks would be on a 12-second cooldown. And finally, his third ability. Obviously, it's a swing. And I think because of his dodge that I'm giving him, he would only have the one swing on an 8-second cooldown. Now, his ultimate ability was hard to pin down. I debated whether it would actually be a utility-based ultimate that granted everyone on the team the ability to see through walls, but I feel like it would be very hard to make useful in the context of Daredevil's kit. Like, looking at a game like Overwatch, where Widowmaker has her walls on her ultimate, I feel like it's only really mostly useful to her because she's a sniper character. And in the context of Daredevil being a much more melee-based character, I don't really see that working out that well in terms of his own kit. So I went with Old Reliable and made it an install. Let the Devil Out would make it so that Daredevil does increased melee damage, faster grounded speed, and decreased cooldowns to each being 4 seconds. That lasts a total of 12 seconds. And I absolutely adored that idea. I think just Daredevil running around, doing all manner of flips, having his handspring dodge, allowing himself to chuck the billy clubs, throwing the nunchucks about, and then swinging away and swinging back in and then swinging away again. I think it would be so incredibly fun. I think it'd be incredibly cool to see. Now, how would any of this be balanced? I have no idea. How much damage should each of these do? No clue. What would I suggest if I had to? Alright, I'll try. Primary fire, first and second hit does 40, third hit does 35, and then ending hit does 50. Boxing does the same overall, but with faster attack speed that takes more hits to do. Secondary fire does 60 per hit. Dropkick does 75, nunchucks do 20 per second for 4 seconds, and swing does about 40 mental damage to all enemies in real life that see it. And all melee attacks have 20% bonus damage. I really hope Daredevil's super cool. I really hope he's so cool. I'm so excited for him. But damn, are we getting him earlier than I expected. My god. So considering what we know for what's next for Marvel Rivals, if you haven't heard, I won't tell you.